When my best friend tried to steal the champagne formula that would save my family's legacy, I swapped our glasses at the last second. Days later, I was watching her being hauled away in handcuffs after my little switch exposed her entire criminal network. That's when I realized friendship is like cheap wine. It might look pretty in the bottle, but the poison reveals itself with the first sip. If you're watching this, hit subscribe and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a corkscrew in a sommelier's hand. My name is Helena Winters, and 3 weeks ago, I was just a respected winemaker continuing my family's century-old tradition. Our vineyard stretched across 50 acres of prime California soil, producing wines that had graced the tables of presidents and celebrities alike. But that wasn't enough anymore. The market was changing, and our finances were drying up faster than grapes in a drought. Our last hope was Golden Harvest, an innovative champagne I'd been perfecting for 5 years. The formula combined traditional methods with a proprietary fermentation process that created the most exquisite bubbles anyone had tasted. Pre-orders were already flooding in from luxury hotels and exclusive clubs worldwide. Nora Bennett had been my friend since college. We'd studied viticulture together, shared dreams over cheap wine in our dorm room, and promised to support each other always. When she started her own boutique wine label 3 years ago, I celebrated her success. When my father died last year, leaving me the struggling winery and mountains of debt, she held my hand at the funeral. This launch party will save everything, I told Nora the morning of our big event. We were setting up the elegant tasting room, crystal flutes sparkling under chandelier light. Outside, catering staff arranged tables among the vines for the 200 industry insiders, critics, and buyers arriving that evening. You deserve this success, Helena, Nora said, hugging me tightly. Your father would be so proud. I didn't notice how her eyes lingered on the special bottle I'd set aside for the ceremonial toast, the one containing the sample of Golden Harvest that had my handwritten notes on the exact formula taped to the bottom. I didn't see her slip away to the bathroom with her phone. I didn't know that everything I'd worked for was about to explode like a bottle of champagne left too long in the sun. Script part separator ===. The launch event was perfect. The warm California sunset bathing our vineyard in golden light as guests arrived in their finery. Wine critics mingled with distributors, while photographers captured everything for social media. I floated through the crowd in my emerald gown, accepting congratulations, my anxiety momentarily forgotten. Golden Harvest will put Winter's estate back on top, said Antonio Rodriguez, the region's most influential critic. I've never tasted anything like it. I smiled, relief washing over me. The bank had given me 3 months to show significant new revenue, or they'd foreclose. This night had to be flawless. At 8 p.m., I clinked a knife against my glass. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for. Servers brought out trays of flutes filled with Golden Harvest. I watched Nora across the room, her red dress making her impossible to miss. She caught my eye and raised her glass in a private toast. That's when I noticed it. Her champagne looked different from the others. The bubbles were rising in that distinctive pattern I'd worked years to perfect, but this was from my special bottle, not the batch we'd prepared for guests. My heart stopped. I excused myself and rushed to the preparation room where I'd left my formula bottle. It was gone. In its place sat a regular bottle of Golden Harvest. Everything okay? Nora appeared behind me, making me jump. They're waiting for your speech. Where is it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Where's what? But her eyes darted nervously to her purse on the counter. My special bottle. I stepped toward her. The one with my notes. Helena, you're being paranoid. It's probably just misplaced. As she spoke, her phone buzzed. The message preview flashed before she could grab it. Got the pictures of the formula. Transfer the money and... Our eyes met. In that moment, 5 years of friendship shattered like a dropped wine glass. How could you? I whispered. Script part separator ===. Her face hardened. Your family's been coasting on reputation for too long, Helena. You're drowning in debt while sitting on that formula. I found investors who'll actually make something of it. I lunged for her purse, but she yanked it away. They're waiting for us, she hissed. Create a scene, and I'll tell everyone how you've been diluting inferior wine with your premium stock to cut costs. Yes, I know about that too. My stomach dropped. That had been a desperate measure during the worst financial month, something no one knew except my cellarmaster. 20 years of friendship, Nora. For what? Money. She leaned close. For survival. Your father stole my mother's recipe 30 years ago. That special fermentation process was hers. I'm just taking back what belongs to my family. My head spun. My father. A thief. Impossible. You're lying. Ask your mother why Maria Delgado left town suddenly. Ask why my mother drank herself to death while your family got rich. Before I could respond, Antonio appeared in the doorway. Everything all right, ladies? Your guests are getting restless. Nora's smile returned instantly. Coming right now. Helena was just having a moment. I stared at the 2 champagne flutes on the tray beside us. One meant watching Nora walk away with my life's work. The other. After you, I said, making a split-second decision. I grabbed the glasses, deliberately switching them before handing her the one she'd poured for herself. To old friends, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. She hesitated but couldn't refuse without looking suspicious. We clinked glasses, eyes locked in silent combat. I sipped mine slowly. Nora drank deeply, triumph flickering in her eyes. She had no idea what she'd just done. Script part separator, Together we walked back to the main event, where Antonio ushered us onto the small stage. The crowd fell silent as I took the microphone, Nora standing beside me with a victorious smile that only I could read. Golden Harvest isn't just another champagne, I began, my voice surprisingly steady. It represents the culmination of generations of knowledge, sacrifice, and... I paused, looking directly at Nora, truth. Cameras flashed as I continued my speech, describing the unique qualities of our creation. All the while, Nora sipped from her glass, completely unaware that she was drinking the regular batch, not my special formula. And now, I concluded, I'd like to make a special announcement. Nora's eyes widened slightly. This wasn't in the program. Starting tomorrow, Winter's Estate will be partnering with the California Wine Historical Society to document the true origins of all our signature processes. I raised my glass. To transparency and giving credit where it's due. The crowd applauded while Nora nearly choked on her champagne. What are you doing? She whispered harshly. Ensuring my father's legacy is protected, I replied quietly. The special bottle you took. It doesn't contain the real formula. It contains a fake one I prepared in case of theft. Color drained from her face. You're bluffing. The real formula is in a safe deposit box, along with my father's detailed journals dating back 30 years. I smiled tightly. Including his correspondence with your mother, who sold him her fermentation process legally in 1993 for enough money to start a new life. Nora's hand trembled. You can't prove that. Actually, I can. The receipt, the contract, and her signed letter of thanks are all preserved. I found them last month while organizing his papers. I leaned closer. Your investors won't be happy when they discover they paid for useless information. As if on cue, her phone began buzzing repeatedly in her purse. You have 48 hours to return what you stole and tell your investors the truth, I said, walking away to mingle with my guests. Or I release everything to the press. What Nora didn't know was that I was still bluffing about the safe deposit box. I had no idea if such documents existed. But the seed of doubt I'd planted was enough to make her sweat through the rest of the evening, checking her phone frantically as messages poured in. Script part separator, The next morning, I woke to chaos. Overnight, my bluff had spiraled beyond anything I could have imagined. Nora had panicked and tried to cover her tracks by erasing messages and destroying evidence, but she'd been sloppy. By noon, I discovered she'd contacted her investors, a notorious business group with suspected ties to counterfeiting operations. They weren't just after my champagne formula, they wanted my entire estate as a front for money laundering. Ms. Winters? Detective Ramirez, California Department of Justice. The call came as I was reviewing security footage from the previous night. We've arrested Nora Bennett this morning for attempted corporate espionage and fraud. Her phone contained evidence implicating several individuals we've been tracking for months. I sank into my chair, stunned. I don't understand. Ms. Bennett's investors weren't just wine enthusiasts. They're under federal investigation for multiple financial crimes. When you confronted her, she tried to delete everything, but our tech team recovered it all. She's offering to cooperate in exchange for leniency. After I hung up, I sat staring at the vineyards my family had tended for generations. My simple glass swap had accidentally exposed a criminal network and saved my winery from becoming their latest acquisition. 3 days later, I watched from the courthouse steps as Nora was led away in handcuffs, her designer dress replaced by an orange jumpsuit. Our eyes met briefly. In hers, I saw rage, humiliation, and something else, fear. Helena! Reporters shouted, thrusting microphones toward me. Did you suspect your friend was involved with criminals? How does it feel to have saved your family business? I paused, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes we don't truly know the people closest to us until we see what they do when they think no one is watching. What I didn't tell them was that the investigation had uncovered something else, a folder in Nora's possession labeled Winter's Family Secrets. I hadn't seen its contents yet, but Detective Ramirez's expression when he mentioned it told me this saga was far from over. Script part separator ===. The Winter's Family Secrets folder haunted me. Whatever it contained had made Detective Ramirez shift uncomfortably during our conversation. I tried focusing on the positive. Press coverage of Nora's arrest had created unprecedented demand for Golden Harvest. Orders flooded in, and the bank happily extended our loan terms. You've become quite the celebrity, my brother Thomas remarked, arriving unexpectedly at the estate 1 week after Nora's arrest. He'd been living in Europe for years, managing our export business, and conveniently avoiding our father's deathbed. Why are you really here, Thomas? I asked as we walked through the vineyards. Can't I check on my little sister after she narrowly escapes disaster? His smile didn't reach his eyes. That night, I caught him in our father's study, rifling through papers. Looking for something specific? I asked from the doorway. He jumped. Just nostalgia. The next morning, an email arrived from Detective Ramirez. Need to discuss contents of the folder. Some concerning documents about your father and brother. I confronted Thomas at breakfast. What did you and Dad do that would interest the DOJ? His coffee cup clattered against its saucer. I have no idea what. Stop lying. I slammed my hand on the table. Nora had a folder about our family. The police have it now. The color drained from his face. When are they coming? Tomorrow. What did you do, Thomas? He stood abruptly. I need to make some calls. By evening, he disappeared, leaving only a hastily scribbled note. Sorry, sis. Dad's mess, not mine. They can't prosecute a dead man. When Ramirez arrived the next day, he brought the folder and grim news. Your father was laundering money through European wine shipments for years, he explained, showing me documentation. The labels, the shipments, all manipulated. And your brother was his partner. My family legacy crumbled before my eyes. Golden Harvest wasn't just our salvation, it was now the only untainted part of Winter's estate. Script part separator ===. I stared at the evidence spread across my father's antique desk. Shipping manifests with false quantities. Invoices for non-existent wine. Bank transfers from shell companies. All bearing signatures I'd known my entire life. My father's elegant script and Thomas's hasty scrawl. How much? I asked, my voice hollow. Conservatively. 7 million over 12 years. Detective Ramirez gathered the papers. Your brother crossed international borders this morning. We've flagged his passport, but he won't come back. The realization settled like sediment in wine, slowly, inevitably. After Ramirez left, I wandered through the empty house. Generations of Winters had built this legacy, and now it stood on quicksand. The worst part. Thomas had managed our finances since Dad died. If he'd continued the laundering, everything, including my precious Golden Harvest, could be seized as proceeds of crime. That night, I couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., I pulled out Dad's old leather journal, searching for anything to make sense of this betrayal. Tucked in the back, I found a yellowed envelope addressed to me, for Helena, only in dire circumstances. Inside was a single page in my father's handwriting and a safety deposit box key. My dearest Helena, if you're reading this, I've failed to right my wrongs before death took me. The choices I made to save this family have become chains instead. Thomas knows only fragments. Protect him if you can. The account in Zurich contains enough to restart if everything is lost. The key opens box number 437 at First National. There you'll find the truth about Maria, about Nora, and about the man who forced my hand all these years, Vincent Curry. Forgive me. I love you, Dad. Vincent Curry. The name struck like lightning. He wasn't just any investor. He was the region's most powerful wine distributor and my godfather. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Dinner tomorrow? We need to talk about your father's debts. Vincent. The trap was closing, and I had less than 24 hours to prepare. Script part separator ===. I arrived at Vincent's hilltop mansion precisely at 7, dressed in black like I was attending my own funeral. The security guard patted me down for recording devices before escorting me to the terrace where Vincent waited. At 72, Vincent Curry still commanded the room, silver-haired, immaculately dressed, swirling a glass of what I recognized as our estate's 1982 Cabernet. Helena, he smiled warmly, kissing both my cheeks. You look so much like your mother. Let's skip the pleasantries, I said, declining the wine he offered. You forced my father into laundering money. His expression didn't change. George made his choices. I merely provided opportunities. $7 million worth of opportunities. Vincent sighed, setting down his glass. Your grandfather nearly bankrupted the estate with his gambling. Your father came to me desperate, with a 4-year-old daughter and a newborn son to support. He saved your family legacy. By turning us into criminals. By keeping you afloat until you could create something extraordinary. He leaned forward. Which you have. Golden Harvest is magnificent. De realisation ritmi. You were Nora's investor. One of several. I needed insurance in case you were less talented than I hoped. His smile returned. You exceeded expectations. Unlike your brother, who's currently hiding in my Monaco property thinking I don't know. My blonde rancode. What do you want from me? Partnership. Your name, your creation, my distribution network. We'll make Golden Harvest global, and I'll handle your father's debt. The authorities will find evidence implicating Thomas alone. NDF refuse? Then I release proof that you knowingly continued your father's operations after his death. Those emergency funds you accessed last month? Directly from our shared accounts. He'd framed me perfectly. No wonder Detective Ramirez had seemed suspicious. You have until Monday. Vincent stood. Choose wisely, goddaughter. Script part separator ===. I drove home in a daze, gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Monday gave me just 5 days to find a way out of this nightmare. 5 days before I either became Vincent's puppet or faced federal charges. This safety deposit box. That was my only hope. First National Bank opened at 9. I was waiting at the door, the key clutched in my palm like a talisman. The manager led me to a private room where I inserted the key with trembling hands. Inside lay a USB drive, a manila folder, and a handwritten note, the sword and the shield. The folder contained photos spanning decades, Vincent with known criminals, at my parents' wedding, holding me as a baby. But it was the USB that delivered the shock. Voice recordings of Vincent threatening my father, demanding compliance, promising to take Helena if he refused. I own your daughter's future, Vincent's voice hissed from 20 years ago. He memberdete. Back at the estate, I discovered something else, a hidden pattern in our shipping records. Dad had been building a case, documenting everything. He hadn't just been Vincent's pawn, he'd been gathering evidence for years. I needed help. Someone Vincent couldn't touch. Mestre Winters. The woman who answered my call was brisk. I'm assistant U.S. attorney Caroline Reis. Detective Ramirez mentioned you might contact me. I have evidence of Vincent Curry's criminal enterprise dating back 30 years, I said. And I'm willing to wear a wire. Her pause was brief. That's extremely dangerous. Curry has people everywhere. He threatened to take me when I was a child, I replied. I'm done being afraid. The plan came together quickly. I would accept Vincent's offer at a contract signing ceremony he'd planned for Monday, a public event with press and industry leaders. Perfect for his ego, perfect for our trap. What Vincent didn't know was that Golden Harvest held one more secret. The formula he coveted so desperately contained a unique compound that left microscopic, traceable residue on anything it touched, including fingerprints. Dad had developed it as a way to catch counterfeiters. Every glass Vincent had ever raised of my champagne had marked him with evidence only I knew how to detect. Script part separator ===. By Saturday, the trap was set. I'd spent 2 sleepless nights transferring Dad's evidence to Caroline Hayes while her team built their case. The wire I would wear was disguised as a vintage brooch, a family heirloom that would raise no suspicion. Dad's journals revealed more than Vincent's crimes. They showed how Maria Delgado, Nora's mother, had been Vincent's first victim. She'd created the fermentation process, but Vincent had threatened her family in Mexico if she didn't sell it to my father for a fraction of its worth. Dad had paid her far more than the contract showed, helping her establish a new identity in Oregon. The guilt had eaten at him for decades. Nora never knew the truth. Vincent had manipulated her too, feeding her lies about my family stealing her mother's legacy. Sunday night, Thomas called from an untraceable number. Vincent's planning to eliminate you after the contract signing, he said, his voice barely a whisper. He never intended to partner with you. Once he has legal rights to Golden Harvest, you're a liability. How convenient that you care now, I replied bitterly. I didn't know how deep he was, Helena. I thought it was just money. When I found out what he did to Dad, what he planned for you, I couldn't be part of it anymore. So you ran. I'm trying to make it right. Check de estivinear sotorage shed. I left something there before I fled. In the shed, buried under old equipment, I found a waterproof case containing recorded conversations between Thomas and Vincent, explicit discussions of money laundering, blackmail, and plans for Winter's estate. This changes our approach, Caroline said when I called her. We need to move up the timeline. Curry's more desperate than we thought. Script part separator ===. Monday morning dawned clear and bright, a perfect California day for Vincent Curry's downfall. I dressed carefully in a cream suit, pinning the wire brooch over my heart. My hands trembled slightly as I fastened it, but my resolve was iron. The event was scheduled at Vincent's exclusive wine club in Napa. Photographers lined the entrance as I arrived, calling my name, asking for a smile. Helena! Over here. How does it feel to partner with Curry Enterprises? Vincent met me at the door, resplendent in a tailored suit. You've made the right decision, he murmured, kissing my cheek. His cologne couldn't mask the predatory air surrounding him. Inside, industry elite mingled with journalists. I spotted Caroline Hayes disguised as a reporter in the corner, giving me an imperceptible nod. Shall we begin? Vincent guided me toward a table where contracts awaited. Once you sign, all your troubles disappear. His smile didn't reach his eyes. I took the pen he offered. Before I sign, I need to know one thing. Did you threaten Maria Delgado the same way you threatened my father? His expression flickered. Careful, Helena. This is neither the time nor place. Actually, I said, my voice carrying across the suddenly silent room, this is exactly the right time and place. I placed a crystal champagne flute on the table, one I'd personally handed him at my launch party. Your fingerprints on this glass match those found on evidence in 3 unsolved cases involving intimidation of winemakers over the past 30 years. Vincent lunged for me, but 2 plainclothes agents intercepted him. Vincent Curry, you're under arrest, Caroline announced, stepping forward as badges flashed throughout the room. The cameras kept rolling as Vincent was handcuffed, his empire crumbling before his eyes. His face contorted with rage as he spat. You're just like your father, too stubborn to know when you're beaten. I leaned close to him. No, I'm nothing like my father. I'm not afraid of you. Script part separator ===. As Vincent was led away, Journalists swarmed around me, shouting questions. I felt strangely calm amid the chaos, as if the weight of generations had finally lifted from my shoulders. Ms. Winters, will you continue to run the winery alone now? What happens to Golden Harvest? Did you know about your father's illegal activities? I raised my hand for silence. Today marks the end of decades of manipulation and fear. Vincent Curry didn't just target my family, he preyed on countless winemakers across this valley. If you've ever been pressured or threatened by him, the FBI has set up a special task force. You're not alone anymore. Back at the estate that evening, I walked through the vineyards as the sunset painted the grapes in golden hues. My phone hadn't stopped ringing, offers of support, interview requests, even acquisition proposals for Golden Harvest. It's really over, I whispered to myself, touching the vines my ancestors had tended. Caroline Hayes called as darkness fell. We found your brother. He's cooperating fully in exchange for immunity. And Nora, she was as much a victim as you were. Vincent had been feeding her lies about your family since she was a teenager. Her mother died believing she'd been robbed of her legacy. Nora wanted justice. I thought about the complicated web of lies that had entangled us all. Will she serve time? Some, but with her cooperation, it'll be minimal. Vincent's going away for decades. After we hung up, I opened my father's favorite Cabernet and poured a glass. The wine business was built on time, the patient waiting for grapes to ripen, for fermentation to complete, for aging to perfect. Perhaps healing worked the same way. Script part separator ===. My first visitor the next morning surprised me. Maria Delgado, alive, gray-haired, but with eyes so like Nora's it made my heart ache. Your father contacted me last year, she said, sitting in our sunroom. He knew he was dying and wanted to make amends. She placed a folder on the table between us. I sold the fermentation process willingly, Helena. Vincent twisted the story to manipulate Nora. I stared at the documents, the original contract with my father, showing a fair price, and letters they'd exchanged over decades. Why didn't you tell Nora the truth? Maria's eyes filled with tears. Vincent threatened to expose my past. Before I came here, I was running from an abusive husband who vowed to kill me. Your father helped me disappear completely. 3 days later, I visited Nora in the detention center. The glass between us couldn't mask her surprise. I thought you'd be celebrating, she said bitterly. I placed my hand against the glass. Your mother's alive, Nora. Vincent lied to you. Her composure cracked. What? She's staying at my guest house. She wants to see you. Tears streamed down her face. I believed him. I hated your family for so long. We were all his puppets, I said quietly. But not anymore. When Nora was released on bail the following week, I was waiting. The media had a field day, wine heiress forgives industrial spy, but they missed the real story. As we drove to meet her mother, Nora clutched a business proposal I'd drafted. A partnership. She asked incredulously. After everything. I nodded. Your mother's fermentation process, my distribution network. Golden Harvest Vineyards, co-owned, transparent, legitimate. Why would you trust me again? I pulled into the estate driveway. Because sometimes the best vintages come from vines that have survived the harshest conditions. The media circus eventually died down, but the story of Vincent Curry's fall became legend in wine country. 6 months after his arrest, I sat in the courtroom as the judge delivered a 40-year sentence. Vincent didn't look at me once. Thomas returned to face reduced charges, accepting 2 years probation and community service. I'll earn back your trust, he promised the day he moved back into the estate's guest house. Some days I believe him. Nora and I launched our rebranded Golden Harvest at a small, intimate gathering, nothing like the flashy event that had started this journey. Maria stood proudly beside her daughter as we poured the first glasses. To second chances, I toasted, and to the truth, which like fine wine, eventually rises to the surface. The winery expanded beyond my wildest dreams. We established a foundation supporting victims of corporate intimidation and coercion. Twice yearly, we host workshops for small vineyard owners, teaching them to protect their intellectual property and recognize predatory business practices. Sometimes at sunset, I walked to my father's grave on the hill overlooking our vines. You should have trusted me with the truth, I whisper. We could have faced him together. Last week, I found Nora there, placing flowers beside his headstone. I hated the wrong person for so long, she said simply. We stood in silence, watching the sun paint the vineyards gold. Vincent still sends letters from prison occasionally. Threats, pleas, manipulation. I no longer open them. Some vintages are better left uncorked, some relationships better left severed. The champagne glasses from that fateful night sit in a display case in my office, a reminder that sometimes, the smallest actions can uncork the greatest truths. One simple switch changed everything. And in the end, isn't that what making wine is all about? Transformation. Taking something bitter and, with time and patience, creating something beautiful.